Greetings, Iain from RTO here. Welcome to another Wednesday marathon. For those of you that have never watched before, Wednesday marathons is when we take on the big catalogues. The bands that have been going for quite a long while, and when there's over 13 albums, we have them on our marathon days. And today is a request. I can't remember who requested them, but they're a band that I really like. I'd say they're probably one of the first proper progressive metal bands, although they never get credited with it. But they were doing stuff before Dream Theater and Fate's Warning. And the band we're talking about, of course, is Queensryche. Now, Queensryche have had a bit of an up and down career. Very successful at the beginning in the early 80s. Went through that very slick period where they couldn't do anything right. So in the end, Jeff Tate sort of took over, and there's all them all the squabbles. He left, Chris DeGarmo left, and now they've got Todd LaTorre in there. And I think they're doing alright. I think their last albums are pretty good. On the whole, there's some really good albums. Most of them are really good, but there's one or two in the collection that I'm not very keen on. But I think everybody has got their favourites of this band. They've sold over 20 million records, which is pretty good. They've released 16 albums and one EP, and yes, the EP is included in this ranking because you couldn't leave it out. It's simple as. So we'll now tackle this very comprehensive discography. So, coming in at number 17, we have the 9th album. It was released in 2006, and it is Operation Mindcrime II, which is the sequel to the Operation Mindcrime, of course. We got Jeff Tate on vocals, Michael Wilton on the lead and rhythm guitars, Mike Stone on guitars, Eddie Jackson on the bass, Scott Rockenfield on drums, but does not appear, he's just credited, so whatever there. So additional drums are done by Jason Slater. We've got Mitch Doran doing some additional guitar work, Matt Lukic on drums, Miranda Tate on backing vocals, and the cast playing Dr. X on here is Mr. Ronnie James Dio, and Sister Mary is played by Pamela Moore. So the first track is called the Fahrenheit Overture. That's just one of them intros, isn't it? Lots of dramatics. It's alright. Convict, which is just 8 seconds of footsteps. Don't know why they put it down as, call it Convict, but hey ho. I'm American. It's got a nice riff, this is. I don't like anything about it because it's really like a teeny bop rock track, which, from these guys you didn't expect. One Foot in Hell, a good guitar solo on this. I'm not sure if this is Michael Wilton or Mike Stone, but it's a pretty good one. But the song is a little lacklustre. Hostage, it's okay. It's one of the better tracks on this album. Some nice riffs in there. That's a pretty good track, actually. Then The Hands, oh dear. It's not very memorable. It's not a very good vocal from Jeff Tate. I'm used to the high-pitched shrieks. This is just a pretty non-memorable sort of song. Speed of Life. Not very good at all. It just sounds awful. I don't know what's going on there. Signs to Say Go, one of the better songs on this album. It's the best vocal from Jeff Tate on this. I like this song quite a lot. It's one of the highlights of this album. Rearrange You, it's okay. That's all I can say about that one. The The Chase, the same, just do nothing for me. Murderer, it's not very coherent, lots of shouting going on, not for me. Circles, whispering vocals and voices, it's got a bit of a guitar solo going on there. If I could change it all, don't mind this one. The guitar works good, but Geoff Tate's vocal is not very good. Intentional confrontation, just a bit of filler there, it's nothing brilliant. A Junkie's Blues, one of the better songs on this album. It sort of resembles something Queensryche-ish. Fear of City Slide, don't like this track, it's just non-memorable and mediocre. And the last track, All the Promises, a very dull track, just nothing for me. This album's really long. I mean, did we really need an Operation Mindcrime II? No, we didn't. I think they were just struggling to get the fans back on board, and it didn't impress me. I thought, oh, this would be good. No, I didn't like it, and I very rarely play this album now. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 3 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 16, we have the 10th album, and it's called Take Cover. Yes, it is covers of songs, other people's songs. So on here we've got Geoff Tate on vocals, Michael Wilton on lead and rhythm guitars, Mike Stone on lead guitar. He does on the 10 tracks. Eddie Jackson is ever on bass, Scott Rockenfield on the drums. Additional personnel, we've got Kelly Gray on guitars and Leopoldo Larson on keyboards. First one here is a cover of Welcome to the Machine, Pink Floyd number, of course. It's actually not a bad version of this. It's a really good guitar solo from Mike Stone. I like that. Then we have Heaven's on the Mind from Jesus Christ Superstar. Doesn't work for me. See, my favourite singer singing this is Ian Gillan. Nah. Then we get a Crosby, Stills and Nash song. One of my favourite songs by the band, absolutely ruined by Queensryche, Almost Cut My Hair. No, I can't. It just doesn't sound right. And then we get another track that we was talking about on Monday from Buffalo Springfield. For what it's worth, probably the worst version of this song. It shouldn't be sung like a metal song. It doesn't sound right. Then we get For the Love of Money, which is an OJ song, of course. This is the worst version of this song I've ever heard. I love the original. It's got that, but the funky metal, nah, it just didn't work. And then they try and do Innuendo by Queen, and they shouldn't have bothered. It's awful. Now, the best cover they do on this is Black Sabbath's Neon Nights. Absolutely stunning version. And I think Geoff Tate had the right voice to do that song. I don't mind that version of it. Then we get Synchronicity 2 by The Police. What are you doing? You don't need to play songs like this. Leave it to the experts. Not very good at all. Red Rain. What are they doing? Ruining a great from Peter Gabriel. It's shocking. It's shockingly shite. It's awful. Now they go the other way and they go Odisea, which was originally performed by Carlo Morale and Salvatore Litria. Isn't too bad, but not a patch on the original. And then we've got U2's Bite the Bullet. Bite the Bullet, the Blue Sky. And it's a live version of it. There's a dirge on here. Geoff Tate cannot deliver the lyric like Bono. Again, this is quite bad. It's not one of the best cover albums, really. You know, there's 2 or 3 on here that are passable, I suppose. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 5 out of 10. Because I think some of the guitar solos by Michael and Mike are pretty good on what is not a very good album. Okay, then, coming in at number 15, we go to the 8th album now, released in 2003, and it is Tribe. And on here we've got Jeff Tate as usual, Michael Wilton does lead guitar on tracks 2, 5 and 8, Eddie Jackson, Scott Rockenfield, and additional personnel actually is Chris DeGarmo on lead guitar on tracks 1, 3, 4, 9 and 10, and Mike Stone does the rhythm guitar, and we got Tim Truman on orchestral arrangements on Rhythm of Hope. First track is called Open. Good track, one of the best tracks on the album. Really good opening riffs, some great stuff from Chris DeGarmo. Solid opener. Then we get Losing Myself. I love the guitar work in this. One of the better songs as well. Not bad at all. Desert Dance. It's not too bad. This seems to be just regurgitating the same riff from the first 2 tracks. Falling Behind. I like this track. It's a little bit different. It's got acoustic guitar on it, which makes it a pretty decent track. The Great Divide, one of them non-memorable songs. When I put this album on again, I couldn't even remember how it went. Rhythm of Hope, quite nice. One of them semi-acoustic songs that really works well. Tribe, it's got that same recycled riff that peers through the album, so it's not very rememberable. Blood, not memorable at all. I didn't really like it. The Art of Life, I don't mind this one. It's got some nice melodic bits in. At least it's not the same chord that's been regurgitated. Probably the best track on the album. Then Doing Fine, again, it's got a more slower melodic rock track. It's got some nice riffs in it. Yeah, this is one of those albums that's got some good tracks on and some not so good. I don't like the idea they keep using the same riff all the way through. Even Quo didn't do that. So I will give that an RTO ranking of 6.6. Okay then, coming in at number 14, we go to the 11th album now, and it's a concept album that was released in 2009 called American Soldier. So on here we've got Jeff Tate, Michael Wilton, Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockenfield as usual. Additional performers, Emily Tate, which I do believe is Jeff's daughter. Jason Ames, just vocals. AJ Fratto, some vocals. Vincent Solano, some vocals. Kelly Gray, rhythm guitar. Damon Johnson, rhythm guitars. And Randy Gain on keyboards. Silver is the opening track. Really good track this is. I like the guitars on this. But not sure who plays the solo, but there's lots of falling out in the band at this time, so I don't know who's doing what. Unafraid sounds one of these tracks with lots of riffs and some heavy speaking in it, and doesn't seem to work. 100 Mile Stare, just spoken word from Jeff on it's all right. At 30,000 feet, a little bit hard to follow. A Dead Man's Word, some good guitar work on it, it's not too bad. The Killer, quite melodic, it's going back to that sort of progressive sound. Some keyboards is pretty good in this, it's alright. Middle of Hell, I like the drumming in this from Scott, really good. Though it sounds a little bit tinny, it's still good. If I Was King, love this track. My favourite track on this album. It's got some really nice melodic, sort of progressive sound and guitar riffs. Back to how they used to do it. Man Down, another good track. Great vocal from Jeff on this one. Driving back drums from Scott on this as well. Remember Me, it's one of the heaviest songs on the album. It really is good. Home Again, I like this song. Great vocal from Jeff, and his youngest daughter helps him out, which is really nice. The Voice, strong track, great vocals. Again, the keyboards on this really lift this track. It isn't a bad album, but it's not a bad concept. It's very heavy subject matter. It's one of them albums, yeah, it doesn't flow as I thought it would. I do like the second part of the album, and I think it's the strongest bit of the album. So I shall give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay then, coming at number 13 we have the 12th album, released in 2011, dedicated to Chaos, and this is the last album to feature Jeff Tate before he was fired in 2012. So it's Jeff Tate vocals and saxophone, Michael Wilton lead guitar, Eddie Jackson bass, Scott Rockenfield drums, Randy Gaines back on the keyboards. We've got Kelly Gray and Parker Lundrum on rhythm guitars, and Miranda Tate, which is the stepdaughter of Jeff Tate, the daughter of the band's manager Susan Tate, and the former wife of the group's guitarist Parker Lundrum. What a mixture there. Wouldn't be a fly on the wall when they were recording this. So the first track on here is called Get Started. It's a great little rocker, some great riffs on this, very strong vocal from Jeff. Hotspot Junkie, again, great drumming from Scott. Michael's solo is pretty good on this. Then we got It Bad. The bass line from Mr. Jackson drives the song along. Excellent. Higher, I don't mind this one. It's a little bit different. We've got some great riffs here. A solid bass line from Eddie Jackson. And Jeff Tate gets the saxophone out on this. It's not too bad. What we do, yeah, not keen on that one. It's all okay. It's just ordinary. Around the World, another one of them songs I'm not keen on. It's rather limp. Drive. We've got lots of great drumming from Scott on this, and the guitar work from Michael is terrific, and the rest of it's rubbish. And at the Edge, another good track with a great bass line on. The riffs are really good, and a very good vocal from Jeff on that one. I'll Take You, love the driving rhythm guitar on this from either Parker or whoever. Good work. Then my favourite track on here is called Retail Therapy. I love the bass line from Eddie. Michael's guitar work on this is fantastic. A really good track. The Lie. Oh, this is sort of, yeah. The first 10 seconds sound more like the Cults She Sells Sanctuary. It's alright. Big Noise, not keen on this one, but the bass line is pretty good. As it's Jeff's last album, I think he did a reasonably good job. You know, the career was a bit limp and lack of direction, but I'd say it was a reasonably good way for Jeff to sign off. There's a lot of old style Queensryche on this album, so I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 7.5. So coming in at number 12, sorry. It's the debut EP, just called Queensryche. Came out in 1982. So on here it is Jeff Tate, Michael Wilton, Chris DeGarmo, Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockenfield. First track on here is Queensryche. Oh, I love this. I remember the first time of hearing this, totally blew me away. I love that double guitar between Chris and Michael. Absolutely belting. One of them best tracks ever, without a doubt. Then we get Night Rider, another blinding track. This is Scott's drumming on this is brilliant. And that vocal from Jeff, God, didn't we go woo when we heard that? Brilliant track. Blinded. It's okay. I'd say it's the weakest of the 4 tracks. It's okay, but it hasn't got the same power as Night Rider and Queensryche. Then the last track on this is the Lady Wore Black. Great track this is. The guitar work between Michael and Chris is fantastic. This is my 3rd purchase, but I had heard Queensryche. I heard that on the Friday Rock Show, and it sort of blew me away. I didn't know who it was, but I loved the track. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.8. Okay, then coming in at number 11, we got the 7th album from 1999, and it's Q2K, and it's the only album that actually credited Kelly Gray as a full member of Queensryche. He's played on so many albums, but this is the only one he gets a proper credit in his own right. So it's Jeff Tate, Michael Wilton, Kelly Gray, Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockenfield. First track is Falling Down. What a great track to open up the album. The drums brilliant, the guitar's a really good track. Sacred Ground, that opening riff, and a great bass line as ever from Eddie Jackson. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's very underrated, but he's the sort of that driving force behind some of these great songs. One Life. Now, this is not a particular favourite of mine. I like the sort of slide guitar bits in it. The vocal is not very good, but it's the slide guitar bits that sort of lift it a little bit. When the Rain Comes, a pretty good track. Scott's drumming's awesome on this. Some great guitar work as ever. How could I know? Solid track. The riffs are brilliant. Very melodic riffs. That's a good vocal from Jeff Tate. Beside You. It's alright. It's not particularly brilliant. Liquid Sky. I like this one. Strong vocal. Some great guitar work on it. Excellent stuff. Breakdown. Love Michael's guitar work on this. Really good. You know, you've got Kelly Gray, good guitarist as well. Solid stuff. Burning Man. Bit mediocre. Then we get What Kind of Man. It's not outstanding. It's listenable. Then we get my favourite track on here. Saved it to the last. The Right Side of My Mind. I love this. Basically, the atmospheric bass line and the guitar work. It's just so atmosphere. Great track to end the album. A pretty solid album. It's getting, once again, it's got out, you know, going through a difficult period. There were some little bits of genius. It's an album that I didn't like when it came out, but I've seen it sort of grown on me when listening to it when I was listening to do this ranking. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 10, we have the 6th album, released in 1997, here in the New Frontier. So this is Jeff, Chris, Michael, Eddie and Scott. Additional personnel on this one is Matt Rollins keyboards, Stephen Nathan keyboards and David Ragsdale on violin on the first track. Sign of the Times is the first track. something's a little bit different, and you get that bit of violin in it. Yeah, works a little bit. Cuckoo's Nest. Quite grungy. I think when this came out, grunge was a thing, and the fact they are from Seattle, I think they sort of tried to jump on the bandwagon a bit. You know, grunge is the thing. This is where it sort of started, and it's actually all right. It's a bit melodic. It's a bit melodic for grunge, but it's in that same sort of vein. Get a Life. Love the guitars in this. And the vocoder as well really works. The voicing sign. Love the big guitars at the beginning of this. When you played under the headphones, it goes. And then the bass line, it sort of echoes round both ears. It's a really good song. It's okay listening to it normally, but the best way to listen to that one is actually into your headphones. Some People Fly, really good. Some really nice harmonies on this. Good track. Saved, really, really heavy. That's probably why I like it. It's got a chunky guitar, some great solos. Excellent. You is more great bass line from Eddie Jackson. Let me get Hero, my favourite track on the album. Great bass from Eddie. The guitar work from Chris and Michael is very delicate. Really good song. Miles Away, love the start of this again. Great bass line. Some more great guitar work from Michael and Chris. Reach, nothing wrong with this one. Solid. All I Want, a great song. Chris sings this. Yeah. Can sing as well. Some really psychedelic guitar work in this one. Hit the Black. Eddie Jackson's great bass line on this. Weird vocal, but it's okay. Then we got Anywhere, Anytime, another track. Again, it's dominated by Eddie Jackson's bass line. Spool, bit of a filler track. I think this is a really good album. A lot of people don't like it because it's grungy, but it proves that they can rock with the grunges. I've enjoyed this one. I always did. It's a little bit different. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.2. Okay then. Coming in at number 9. We're going to the 14th album now. Released in 2015. Condition Hüman. Second album with Todd. So on here is Todd LaTorre on the vocals, Michael Wilton, Parker Lundgren on rhythm, Eddie Jackson and Scott Rockenfield. First track on this one, Arrow of Time. Great opening track. Great riffs. Really going back to the old days. Very melodic and a great vocal from Todd. Very good singer. Perfect replacement. Excellent track. Guardian, love Scott's drumming on this. I really like Scott as a drummer. He can play different sort of styles, and I love the guitar solo on this for Michael. Absolutely brilliant. Hellfire. This definitely is classic Queensryche. From that great drum intro, Eddie's bass line sort of manoeuvring through the riffs. Really good track. Then we get my favourite track on the album, one of my favourite songs by the second sort of reincarnation of Queensryche, Toxic Remedy. Oh, I love this. The twin guitars between Parker and Michael. Excuse me, I'm gonna... Oh, the voice is going. That's a little bit better. So you've got the twin guitar between Michael and Parker, and a great vocal from Todd. Really, really strong track. Selfish Lives. I love the start of this again. I love that. I love tracks that start off like if it's on the radio and then it booms in. Great vocal from Todd. I-9, classic Eddie Jackson bass line, booms in. Then you got that lovely vocal again from Todd. Bulletproof. This is a very slow, melodic sort of progressive track. Great vocal here from Todd. I think Todd's of these melodic songs has got a better voice range than Jeff for this sort of style. It's an excellent track. Hourglass, more driving riffs. Certainly going back to the early days here. It's absolutely brilliant. The solo on this is tremendous. Just Us, another good track. Lots of gentle guitar at the beginning of this. Lovely. All If I Was There, it's okay. It's not my favourite track on the album. Then we get The Aftermath. This is 1 minute of a just vocal from Todd. Really good. And Condition Human, the last track. Second favourite track. It's got some lovely melodies and that progressive metal sound. Really goes back to the great days. Great vocal from Todd. Absolute solid album. I love this album, but of all the Todd albums, this is sort of my least favourite of his, but it's still a brilliant album. And I play this, but I play the other two more. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, then coming in at number 8, we've got the fifth album from 1994, and it is Promised Land. So this is Jeff Tate, Chris DeGarmo, Michael Wilton and Eddie Jackson. First track is a little short thing called 9:28 AM, like rumbles of the drums from Scott, which goes straight into the second track, I Am I. Great guitar work here from Chris and Michael, and Jeff is on fire, absolutely on fire on that track. Then we get Damaged, one of my favourite tracks by Queensryche, top 10 songs. Love Scott's drumming and that intricate guitar work from Chris and Michael. Solid track. Out of Mind. We've got some keyboards in this and it actually works. The guitar work is excellent in this. Really melodic and intricate, very good. Bridge, another great song. Love the bass line. The three guitarists sound great together. You've got the contrasts of Chris and Michael, and in between that you've got Eddie coming with this great bass line. Really good track. And then we get the title track, Promised Land. Again, it's that bass line from Eddie that really drives it. There's lots of atmosphere on this, a real strong track. Disconnected. I just love them croaking frogs at the beginning. The seagulls at the sea. Yeah, it's okay. Not my favourite track on the album. Lady Jane. Love this track. Great vocal from Jeff. Pretty awesome drumming from Scott. My Global Mind. Some great power chords in this. Good track. One More Time. It's got an acoustic guitar on it. Really nice track. Someone else, sorry. Last track on the album. I love the structure of this song. Lots of little different delicate touches. Really good. Really good album. Not a bad track on this. Play this one quite a lot. I love all the guitar work on this album. It's very, very good. So I shall give it an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, then coming in at number 7, we have the 13th album, and it's called Queensryche, and it's the first that featured Todd LaTorre as the vocalist. So it's Todd, Michael, Parker, Eddie and Scott. Starts off with an instrumental called X2, really good, lots of bells and dramatics leading into the next track, which is Where Dreams Go to Die. My favourite track on this album. I just love it, you know. Todd's vocals on this are absolutely electric. Plus you've got some great guitar work from Michael and Parker. Excellent track. Then we get Spore. Again, that opening riff, that rhythm riff from Parker really gets you hooked. And then you get Michael coming on the top of it. Super track. In This Light. The drumming on this from Scott is just terrific. Everything seems to work around that drum beat. Really, really good. Redemption. Again, Scott's drumming starts this song really well, gets you hooked, and it's a really good vocal from Todd. Vindication, one of the fast and furious rockers on this. Some great riffs, really heavy, more heavy metal than progressive metal. Good track. Midnight Lullaby, which is a little instrumental. It's so eerie and dramatic. A World Without. Love this track. Second favourite on this. It sort of fits nicely with Midnight Lullaby as well. Good track. Don't Look Back. Solid track. It's not the best, but it's solid. Fallout. Eddie Jackson's bass line again. I love his bass line. It's just typical Eddie Jackson. Open Road. The filler on the album. It's not very good. Great debut for Todd. Apart from that last track, every track is solid. So I shall give it an RTO ranking of 8.6. Okay, then coming in at number 6, we'll go to 1984 now. Was it 83? Well, it was released in 2003. I can't read. It was re-released with 3 bonus tracks, which I think the one's off the EP. So it's The Warning. So that came out in 1984. Jeff, Chris, Michael, Eddie and Scott. Starts off with Warning. I remember hearing this for the first time. This is the second album that I brought by Queensryche. I love the riffs in this. It blew me away. On Force. Love this. This has got Chris DeGarmo, some great work interplay. I think they're both sort of playing off each other. It's really good. Deliverance. If there was such a genre as dramatic metal, I think this would fill it. It's so dramatic. Absolutely brilliant. No Sanctuary. Jeff's vocal on this is absolutely awesome. NM156. Scott's drumming is just a peach to listen to. Take a hold of the fire. Take hold of the flame. Remember when I first heard it, I thought the vocal range of Jeff Tate on this is unbelievable. He rattles it. Before the Storm, one of my favourite songs by Queensryche. I love the vocal on this, some great guitar work. Is my favourite track on the album, without a doubt. Child of Fire, more great driving riffs here from the Japs. Really good track. Road to Madness, love the bass line. Love that driving melodic sound. Great track. Brilliant album. From top to bottom. These next few albums are all very, very good. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 8.8. Okay, then coming at number 5, we've got the 15th album, released in 2019. So it's Todd, Michael, Parker and Eddie and Scott. And the first track on here is called Blood of the Levant. Oh, I love this track. Great heavy driving riffs again. Man of the Machine. Great vocal from Todd on this. Really, they've really gone back into that old style sounding Queensryche by this album. Absolutely brilliant. Light Years, my favourite track on here. This is definitely goes back to the glory days of Queensryche. They've really come back with a bang, and if you've not heard this stuff, go and listen to it. I know there's people out there that think that Queensryche is no good without Geoff Tate. Wrong. Go and listen to this track. Inside Out. Again, it's got that feel of the early era of Queensryche. I love this track. Propaganda Fashion. I found this a little bit generic. It's not one of the better tracks. Dark Riviere. It's an amazing track. This is actually written by Parker, and it's a really, he's sort of styled it on early Queensryche. Really, really good. Bent. It's okay. Not the best track on here. Inner Unrest. Some great driving riffs on this one. I love listening to that track. Launder the Consequence. Very progressive metal. Solid track. Some great guitar licks. A great bass line. Then the last track is Portrait. Again, it's just solid, good old fashioned Queensryche. So good. Solid album. Certainly really getting into the groove and getting back into that old style song, which they would continue on with their next album. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 4. It's the 16th and most current album. It came out last year, of course. One of my favourite albums of 2022, Digital Noise Alliance. Now on here it's Todd, Michael, Eddie Jackson, Mike Stone, and a new drummer, Casey Guerrillo. First track on here is In Extremis. No hanging about, straight in, bang. Great guitar riffs. Todd's vocals are absolutely on fire. Chapters, more quirky riffs. Great drumming here from the new drummer, Casey Guerrillo. Absolutely brilliant. Fitted in like an old pair of slippers. Lost in Sorrow. They've actually perfected that old style sound of Queensryche now. Absolutely brilliant. I love that track. Sidieth. A bit experimental, bit like Black Sabbath, but it's great. It's got proper progressive metal riffs in it. Terrific track. Take back Behind the Walls. Take yourself back to Operation Mindcrime. And the riffs are just like stuff off that album. Just absolutely brilliant. Nocturnal Light. My favourite track. There's just something about this track. The guitar work, the twinned guitar work on this is fabulous. Out of the Black. Again, you've got great guitar work here from Michael and Mike. And it just helped when you've got the ever dependable Eddie Jackson to provide a great bass line. Forest, nice slow song. The two guitarists at the beginning is just wonderful. Some nice drumming here from Casey. Hold On, again Casey really coming up to the mark here. Great drumming on this. Then we got Tormentum, Todd's best vocal, probably his best vocal that he's done in Queensryche since he joined. It keeps it note for note perfection. And then we get the blip on the album. You don't really count this, it's a cover of Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. It's an interesting interpretation. Yeah, I think this is Todd's best album with Queensryche. Absolutely stunning. This album went down a storm, definitely. Amazing. Okay, it's got the little blip Rebel Yell, but we don't count that. But the rest of the album is classic sounding Queensryche, and I'm going to give that an RTO ranking of 9.4. Okay then, coming in at number 3. This is the hard bit. These 3 albums. I love them all the same. tough. But the number 3 is the 4th album from 1990, and it is Empire. So it's Jeff, Chris, Michael, Eddie, Scott. We've got Michael Kamen, who of course has done a Bond score. He does the orchestral arrangements. Randy Gain does the answering machine message on Empire, and Robert Bailey provides the keyboards. First track on here is Best I Can Do. Love that driving bass line from Eddie on this. Terrific track. The Thin Line. This has got an interesting vocal from Jeff Tate. It's not as quite as... It's pretty good because it's not as deep. Really weird track, but I really like it. Jet City Woman. Classic. Love the guitar work here from Chris and Michael. Absolute classic. But my favourite track on here is Della Brown, and that's purely, it's got one of Eddie Jackson's bass lines he's ever done. It's prominent, it drives the song along. Then we get Another Rainy Night Without You, another classic. The double guitars on this just come to the party. Absolutely wonderful. Title track Empire, classic. Love Jeff Tate's vocals on this. A little bit different, it changes his range, really good. Resistance. The guitar work here between Michael and Chris is amazing. Throw in a good bass line from Eddie and it's a solid song. Silent Lucidity. I love the acoustic, this start on this one, and then it goes straight into a really good drum, and then you've got these strings from Michael Kamen. Very soundtracking sort of track. Really, really good. I love that track. Bit commercial, yes, but very, very solid. Hand on Heart. This song's all about Chris, Michael and Eddie. That interplay between the three of them is amazing. I don't know if it was done intentionally, but I don't know if this is part of a jam, but it just really is good. One and Only, great vocal from Jeff. The riffs are brilliant on this. Anybody Listening, fantastic vocal from Jeff. Great bass line, fantastic track to end the album. This album's a bit more commercial, but there's not a bad track on it. Solid from top to bottom. Play this one so much. And I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9.5. Okay, coming in at number 2 is the second album from 1986, Rage for Order. Now I brought this purely on that cover. I never look back. This is the album that got me into Queensryche. So it's Jeff, Chris, Michael, Eddie and Scott. Got some extra musicians on here. Neil Kernan, keyboards, and Bradley Doyle, emulator programming, whatever that is. Opens up with my favourite Queensryche track, Walk in the Shadows. It's my favourite. It's the first track. I didn't realise that Queen of the Reich was the same band. You know, back in '86 was the metal. I didn't care who's done it, but this is just absolutely amazing. The vocal from Jeff on there is just electric. I remember hearing this for the first time and going, holy moly, woo, great track. Then we get I Dream in Infrared. Love the start to this. The guitar work is amazing, and another fantastic vocal from Jeff. The Whisperer. You start off with this lovely sort of twin guitar thing, and then Scott's drumming comes in. Then we get a cover by Lisa DeBello called Gonna Get Close to You. I love this. This is far better than her version, because that's got that 1980s slickless, that horrible, you know what I hate about the 80s. The original version is everything I hate about the 80s, but this is brilliant, and I think Jeff does a better vocal on this than Lisa DeBello. It's an absolutely brilliant cover. The Killing Words is next. Great track. The arrangement is brilliant. The guitar work from Chris DeGamo underneath the Michael Wilton is fantastic. Surgical Strike, great riffs, licks, solos are all brilliant on this. Short little track, but really good. New Regal, a weird track, but Jeff's vocal is amazing, and again, the little bit of the guitar work is brilliant as well. Chemical Youth, We Are Rebellion, another good track. The riffs are brilliant in this. Very melodic, very progressive. The drum sound, even for 1986, it's got that little bit of hollowness really adds to the atmosphere. Then we get London. I think this is a great track. One of my favourite tracks. The focus on this is amazing. The guitar work, the bass line, brilliant. Then we get Screaming in Digital. The keyboards really add to this. It just all gets intermixed with the guitar work from Chris and Michael. Brilliant. Then we get I Remember You, the last track. Love the acoustic guitar on this. Gives it so much atmosphere. Then the drums come in. And then some great singing. Great way to end the album. As I said, this is the first Queensryche album I ever bought. Purely on that cover. And I haven't looked back. This album has got a very special place in my heart. And that's why it's so high. To me, there's not a bad track on this. And I continually play this one. So I will give this an RTO ranking of 9.6. So my number one album, I think everyone knows it, and it's probably the favourite album of 99.9% of all Queensryche fans. It's the third album from 1988, Operation Mindcrime. Now, this is a concept album and a rock album that follows the story of Nicky, who's a drug addict who becomes disillusioned with corrupt society and reluctantly becomes involved in a revolutionary group as an assassin of political leaders. Yeah, it sort of rings true to modern day, doesn't it? So it's like the classic lineup for me: Jeff, Michael, Chris, and Scott. And we got obviously a cast on here. Pamela Moore again plays Sister Mary. Anthony Valentine plays Dr. S. Debbie Wheeler as the nurse. Mike Schneider as the anchorman. And Scott Mattia as Father William. And it also features the Moronic Monks of Maroon Heights Choir. Opens up with this little intro called I Remember Now. One intro. What's going on? It sort of sets it all up. Then it goes into this little instrumental piece called Anarchy X. Scott's drumming is brilliant. It's sort of building up to the first proper track. And then when that comes in, Revolution Calling, what a start. That vocal from Jeff. The drums are so crisp. Them high, especially on that hi-hat. And the riffs are just absolutely amazing. Then we get my favourite track on the album, which is the title track, Operation Mindcrime. Love the guitar work on it, the licks, the shredding, the solo. It's just full of great guitar work. Speak. The start of this is great. Great guitar from Michael Wilton. Scott's on fire on the drum kit on this one. Great track. Spreading the Dream. Again, it's Scott. And drums really give it some atmosphere and depth. The Mission. The driving riffs from Chris and Michael lead this track along. The keys give it a little bit of depth. It's just brilliant. Sweet Sister Mary, an absolute classic. It's the longest track, probably one of the longest tracks Queensryche ever did, but it's got so much of that progressive metal and sort of metal rock. You've got some gentleness. It reminds you a little bit of Rush in places. It's absolutely brilliant track. Then we get The Needle Lies, one of those fast, furious tracks. The solo on this is absolutely a killer. Brilliant stuff. Then we get Electric Requiem. It's a little short. It's sort of after the fury of the last track. You need something just to bring you down a little bit, and it's got a little bit of atmospheric meaning. Then Breaking the Silence, another driving track with riffs and bass lines. Absolutely brilliant. I Don't Believe in Love. The opening riff on this really gets you hooked. You stay hooked for the whole song. Waiting for 22. Now this is a little instrumental. It's about a minute long. Just Chris Tagamo showboating. Very eerie but very good. Then we get another little short track called My Empty Room. The most thing on this is that clock ticking. Really eerie. When you listen to this into the headphones, it's the most prominent thing you hear, apart from the guitar. And then the album ends with a great track called Eyes of a Stranger. Absolute killer track. The riffs on this are amazing. The drumming from Scott is his best. Jeff Tate's vocal is electric. Throw in a bass line that absolutely blows your mind away, and it's a solid way to end the album. What an album! This is an album you don't put the odd track on, of course. You play it all the way through to really appreciate it. And it's one of them that you really appreciate it when you listen to it on headphones, when you've got no distractions. To me, this was the pinnacle of Queensryche. They nearly got it right on the second album, but boy did they get it right on this album. It's just quite ironic that their worst album for me is Operation Mindcrime II, and we didn't need it because this was all you needed. So I'm going to give this one an RTO ranking, of course, 10 out of 10. One of my favourite albums of the 80s, this is, without a doubt. So there we go, Queensryche, and at some stage we will look at that album that Jeff Tate did, but that's for another day. That's all for today. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll be back tomorrow, and we've got a Battle of the Debut tomorrow that's really good. We're going to find out who are the Kings of Manchester. So the bands in question are the Smiths and the Stone Roses. I think this one's going to be a tight one because both bands are pretty good. And then tomorrow, Pick a Mix is a trip down memory lane, which means we're going to look at the UK chart for the 23rd of February and the year 1976. And also tomorrow is live stream from 8 PM. So once again, thank you for watching. I'm not going to put that stop for that. It's right at the end. I'm supposed to have said thank you for watching. I'm sure you've all watched as well. So if this is the first time you're watching, if you like it, give me a thumbs up. Why not subscribe? Because there's lots of good music on here. A bit of something for everybody. So bye for now.